Okay, panoorin muna natin 'to.
Hello Internet, Taliesin here, and today we are talking
makikita ko
World of
pala dun eh.
Warcraft
Yeah.
Dragonflight, and we are talking you returning to WoW to play Dragonflight, and everything
Yeah.
you need to know to make that happen. Because look, I don't want to make a big deal out of it or anything, okay? But we all noticed you haven't logged in for a while, and that's fair enough, you know, life happens. Apparently, for other people, I hear that's definitely a thing, but I know you, Internet. I know you've seen those glorious Dragon Isle zones, and Tuskar, and shiny new UI, and talent trees, and Tuskar with little hats, and majestic dragon-filled skies, and proper old-school fantasy vibes, and Tuskar but with like glasses on, and in-depth new profession and crafting systems, and Tuskar making a tasty soup. And I know that little WoW tingle has been flaring up again. And Internet, I understand, because there is a ton of exciting new features in Dragonflight, both long-awaited and unexpected, and we are going to tell you all about them today, so that when you take your first steps, or flaps, I guess, into the new game, you can pretend that you knew about them all along, and that's okay. We will keep your secrets. No one need ever know. So join us for our 7 top tips for returning players in World of Warcraft Dragonflight, okay? Go, 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 go. Okay, first things first, let's get your character sorted and ready to go by looking at some of the core new features of Dragonflight. And of course, the return of an old friend, talent trees, allowing you to customize your abilities and talents more than ever before for every situation imaginable, anytime you want. And that's all well and good. I don't think I need to sell you on how fun talent trees are, but the thing I really like about these is how easy they are to use. Individual builds can be saved, named, and imported or exported, meaning that you can drop that DPS Holy Priest build, or pure auto-attack Fury Warrior build, or, and I kid you not, the no Moonkin form Balance Druid build right there in your guild Discord, and they can see that you were right all along. It can be done, and I did it. Who's laughing now, eh? Also, does anyone know of any guild currently recruiting? Because I'm suddenly available. There has also been a massive UI customization overhaul, giving you complete control over how your WoW gaming experience looks, with nearly every element of the shiny new interface adjustable to your tastes, no matter how bad your taste is. And if you think all that looks a bit hard to navigate, well, don't forget the search function, which seriously, like, yes, thank you. Also savable and shareable as individual character profiles or across your entire account. I'm also a big fan of some of the new accessibility options, like the new Interact key, which when enabled allows you to automatically interact with objects and NPCs just by facing them and using a designated key press instead of mouse buttons. Action targeting, which automatically selects enemies as you approach them, and press and hold casting, so that you can spam said enemy with all the smites you've got without ever having to take your finger off the smite button. All things considered, you might find that WoW is just a whole lot easier to play than you remember it. And so now you've created your new evoker and got it all set up, let's play some WoW. Oh wait, you did create your new Drakthir evoker, didn't you? Okay, fine, off you go. There's only like 15 centillion customization options. You get on with that, and in the meantime, we'll talk about
Dragon Isle tips.
Oh yeah, let's play some WoW. And we're at the good stuff now, fam. Launch day. Dragonflight brings us a whole new continent to explore, the Dragon Isles. Make sure you click on the crow's nest option that appears on the boat ride over for a proper good cinematic eyeful as you arrive. And in my opinion, this new continent is an absolute banger. After a couple of years hopping around different planes of existence in Shadowlands, the Dragon Isles feels like a return, not just to Azeroth, but to the kind of classical fantasy aesthetic and feels that will envelop many a returning player like a big warm snuggly blanket. But you know, a spiky blanket with massive shoulder pads, because it is still WoW after all. And my top tip here is don't forget to explore, because it's easy to look at the huge zones which you can zoom about via the new dragon riding feature, more on that later, and assume that you won't need to go searching in every little nook and cranny of the Isles like you might in past expansions, where you had to spend the first patch or two on foot. But that is not the case at all. And Blizz tries to make that obvious to the player, I think, in the whole vibe of the expansion, which is like, yeah, this is an expedition of discovery. Your main buddies are the Explorers League and the Relinquery, and the whole world is just so beautifully realized and detailed and alive feeling that what I found on beta is that far from making me skip stuff, enough. The ease and entertainment that dragon riding brings to travel in Dragonflight actually really encouraged me to look around and explore much more than I have done in previous expansions. I think many of you will understand what I'm trying to say if I tell you that the vibes and design philosophy of these zones reminds me a lot of Grizzly Hills, in that there's this sense of place where people live and go about their business that you can just be witness to.
Bring my food.
Design and skyboxes and just spaces to exist in. I don't want to be a dweeb here, okay, but it really is bringing the world back into World of Warcraft. So my advice is that whatever you are doing in the Isles, be open to changing course. If you see an interesting looking cave, check it out. If you notice a couple of NPCs walking along the road chatting, go and listen in. If you're doing an outrageously enjoyable dragon race or time trial and the course takes you through an area you're not familiar with, go back and check it out after you've completely mercilessly destroyed your fellow racers with your Chad dragon riding skills and left them eating your dust. Your air. I guess they'll be eating your air, but yeah. Because in my experience, Dragonflight really seems to reward players who take a moment to look around and take it in. From little hidden quests and character moments and environmental storytelling dotted around, it's felt like coming home for me, and I haven't even been anywhere. There are 8 new dungeons going live with the launch of Dragonflight, as we've come to expect, which thematically tend to tie up storylines which we start and play through in the leveling campaign. From a game structure point of view, these are a really good way of getting your characters geared up to a certain level early on, and of course the real fun comes when they open up as Mythic Plus dungeons in Season 1. But I wanted to take this section just to highlight a couple of my favourite little moments, like the Magical Academy Algathar, where players get to take part in a giant game of Lish Laroth, or Talon Toss. Ooh, a ball-throwing game in a magical academy? That's an incredible idea. Guys, I think that's got some real potential. Or my personal favourite, the Knockhood Offensive, which is an instanced version of the entire Onaran Plains zone, and where you and your dungeon team get from boss to boss via your dragon-riding drakes. This dungeon is considerably easier to traverse with a fully leveled up drake, more on that later. And if you really don't fancy it even then, don't forget you can use the new ride-along feature to turn into a little whelp and auto-follow a party member who is comfortable taking the reins. And you can just focus on all the boss-killing good stuff. But I love this dungeon. It feels great to be swooping around freely with your homies, and I hope they take this further and have full-on free-form dragon-riding boss fights in future dungeons and raids.
Wow. Dungeon?
In many ways, Dragonflight feels like a return to the core principles of WoW, and that could also be said for the end game, which feels like a wiping of the slate after what we're going to call the AP era of WoW. So a lot of things that we've started to consider progression staples in recent times are gone, like mission tables. What mission tables? An infinite currency grind connected to your core player that you have to make sure to keep up with week to week throughout the expansion forever? Nope, completely gone. And that's a big deal, because when there is no AP grind and your character's power basically just comes from the gear that they collect from dungeons and raids, and don't forget, fully functional tier sets are back from the very first raid in Dragonflight, and crafting and PvP and the world, that means there's room at endgame for a much more optional journey, and Dragonflight fills that gap with the renowned parts of the 4 main factions of the Isles, and a couple of other smaller scale reps on the side for good measure. Renown is basically a remodeling of faction reputation, but with lots more rewards at much more frequent intervals, and because there's no AP equivalent, all those rewards are cosmetic or just unconnected to player power. So in the Waking Shores, you unlock exploring transmogs and rock climbing mini-games and drake customizations and new quest lines and portals around the Isles and toys and pets and titles and stuff like that. Tuskar in the Azure Span have backpack transmogs to unlock, new fishing holes and mini-games to access across the continent, as well as their own extra quests and recipes and pets. You get the idea. Cool stuff to have and fun to collect, but nothing that any player needs to stay up to date with raiding or whatever. And the fact that you are constantly popping new ranks and rewards from the 4 factions is actually a surprisingly good motivator and makes world and side quests feel really worthwhile. There's also the Black Dragon reputation, where you choose who you want to back as new leader of the flight between Twink Rathian and Daddy Sibelian for even more cool cosmetics, including the Black Dragon Scale customization for your Drake, which actually that is kind of mandatory really now I think about it. Like, who doesn't want the Black Dragon Scale unlock? And another major form of endgame progression is of course the new professions system, which I'm not going to get into tons of detail about now, but with so many different areas to specialize in, and the new work order system where you basically pick up other player commissions to fill and improve your skills, it's another optional but incredibly rewarding and potentially very lucrative way to spend your endgame days. There's even a unique transmog set available for open world PvP kills in war mode if you like. Dragonflight is very much the optional grind expansion in this first patch, and that's a big philosophy change that might take a while for some players to get used to, but I think it's a good one, done really well, and I think a lot of people are going to have a lot of fun with it.
Okay. Explore. Improvement.
If you haven't played WoW for a moment, there are some big quality of life improvements that might be new to you. Like, you know, you can group with players on the opposing faction now, right? Horde and Alliance, running dungeons and raids together, if the group leader has enabled it. Mass hysteria. There's also the Inspiration Catalyst, which allows players to turn standard non-tier items of raid gear, dungeon gear, PvP gear, and certain open world gear into tier set pieces, meaning that players can work towards unlocking their tier set and bonuses no matter what content they prefer, and which I can't lie, works as quite nice bad luck protection for raiders like me too. Nice. A big feature that will be new to everyone, and which we've touched on already today, is dragon riding, the new momentum-based flying mechanic which will be your main way of traversing the Dragon Isles. Dragon riding takes a minute to master and has a talent tree that needs to be unlocked by collecting dragon riding glyphs from all around the map to reach its true potential. But all glyphs are there, waiting to be picked up at the very start of the expansion, meaning that you can go and collect them all the moment you pick up your first Drake, just a few minutes into the opening questing. It's almost 3 times faster than normal WoW flying. It's like 1,000,000 times more fun in my opinion, and enhances every other aspect of the game with its mere presence. Drakes are customizable to an absurd degree, with some complete transformations that drop from certain bosses and achievements, and which will undoubtedly continue throughout the expansion. But the best thing of all your dragon riding progress, from your Drakes to their customization unlocks to the glyphs you've collected to upgrade them, are completely account-wide. Because Dragonflight is also objectively the most alt-friendly expansion in World of Warcraft history. So those renown rewards that we saw in the last section, all of them, apart from like supply crates, are account-wide unlocks. So all that transmog, but also mini-game unlocks and fishing hole unlocks and everything else, it's all account-wide. And I've got to tell you, it feels pretty good to step off the boat on an alt, and before you've even picked up a quest, mounting up onto a fully leveled dragon riding Drake and zooming all over the map, doing world quests and picking up treasures that you've unlocked on your main. Top stuff. And you know, at last.
Jump to season 1. Okay. Anong meron sa season 1?
Weeks into the expansion, as usual, comes season 1 with the opening of the Vault of Incarnates raid, but a new structure to a lot else, like the 8 dungeon Mythic Plus pool featuring 4 Dragonflight dungeons and 4 dungeons from returning expansions, meaning that season 2 will have a complete 100% different dungeon and loot table lineup to its predecessor. A really good change in my opinion that I'm looking forward to seeing play out. Different dungeons every Mythic Plus season is awesome. For PvPers, there's new solo queue arena, including ranked mode, which, look, you asked for it, fam, okay? Don't blame me. This is something you said you all wanted. And even the raid is the first in modern WoW to release all difficulty modes at the same time, something that will definitely have an interesting impact on the race to world first. But much more important than that, the race to world first for guilds with a name a bit like Immortalis, the true race that all the cool kids love, started by my guild called, and this might not be a massive surprise to you, Immortalis, specifically to create a competition that we might actually win, but which we don't often win. Curse you other Immortalises, and especially you a bit like Immortalis, you guys suck.